Hello everyone, greetings and welcome to this new battery tool test by Makita. It's great to have you back. In today's video, we're looking at a device that I haven't featured on this channel before. You can see it. It's an 18-volt battery pin nailer from Makita, specifically the DPT353. And precisely, we'll take a detailed look at this ingenious tool in today's video, but in theory and in practice. So without further ado, let's not waste any time. Let's get started after the intro. But if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to this channel quickly and activate the bell to not miss any videos. You can find the current prices as usual in the video description below. Thank you for your support, and let's get started after the intro. The Makita battery pin nailer or brad nailer DPT353 is definitely a very practical tool for connecting or fixing different materials with small metal pins in the shortest time, which are practically invisible afterwards. It sounds very promising, but I'm curious about what we can really expect from this device today. As usual, there's not much to see on the product box. We have the product name here at the bottom, descriptions in different languages on the left, and another illustration of the battery pin nailer. The side is completely empty, and on the back, 3 more small illustrations of the specifications of this device. For us, let's take a look inside the product box, see what accessories come with it. I must admit, it seems quite empty inside as well. Nevertheless, let's see what comes with the solo version, hence the Z at the end. First and foremost, from the package, we naturally get the actual device, the pen nailer, the DPT353. Next, there's all the paperwork. We have a very thin 2 to 3 page user manual, and of course, safety instructions and the promotional brochure are also included. Lastly, on the right side, another bag with small accessories. Basically just a belt clip. What's missing or required for the solo version is clear. An 18-volt battery down here, and of course, the nails are also crucial. They shouldn't be missing, otherwise the device won't be of much use to us. And here, I've immediately added a set of nails from Makita, specifically the headless pins, 30 millimeters long and 0.6 millimeters thick, or headless pins. I'll also provide a link to these in the video description below. But now, let's move on to the main event, the battery pen nailer, the DPT353. Let's start with the first impression. I must say, the DPT353 is relatively compact and handy. Honestly, I imagined the device to be much larger and heavier, but as you can see, it's quite compact in size, and in terms of weight, it's not particularly heavy. In numbers, this means that the DPT353 has a total length of approximately 230 millimeters and is about 220 millimeters high without the battery. Regarding the weight, it depends on the battery you have and what you intend to do. If you plan to drive thousands of nails with this device, then a larger battery is recommended. For example, this 5 ampere-hour one. As you can see, the solo device itself weighs approximately 1,650 grams, so it's not heavy at all. Adding the 5 ampere-hour battery brings us to about 2,200–2,300 grams, and I believe the weight of these nails can be considered negligible. Regarding the construction, I don't need to say much because we have the typical high-quality Makita craftsmanship. Clean edges and joints, no large gaps, and so on. Just as we're accustomed to from Makita. In terms of handling, it's very similar here as well. As mentioned earlier, the entire device with a 5 ampere-hour battery weighs approximately 2,300 grams, so it's not too heavy. And as you can see, the device is well balanced in terms of its center of gravity, located in the middle of the handle area. Depending on the position in which I want to work, I don't need much force to counteract or stabilize the device accordingly. The actual handle is mostly identical to existing Makita devices. In terms of ergonomics, it's not uncomfortable, generously rubberized, and therefore very, very slip resistant. Only for very large hands it might get a bit tight here. Nevertheless, for me personally, more than sufficient to ensure a secure grip on the machine. Regarding the controls, the DPT353 doesn't really offer much. Here in black, we have the trigger for the index finger, and above it, very small, here a release locking mechanism, also marked with a small lock symbol, making it immediately apparent whether the pen nailer is locked or not. I must admit, the locking mechanism is really very, very small, almost a bit fiddly. But I believe that's intentional because one wants to avoid accidentally triggering it and unlocking the pen nailer, for example. To unlock or lock the pen nailer, you really need to use either the index finger or thumb directly. There are no additional controls on the handle. What we do have at the base of the machine is a battery status indicator with 3 red LEDs, which continuously displays the battery level during use. By the way, as mentioned, this Makita battery pen nailer is an 18-volt device, meaning we need an 18-volt battery accordingly. However, the capacity can vary because this pen nailer doesn't require peak power. Accordingly, we can easily use small batteries here, depending on what we want to do. If we want to drive thousands of nails, then a larger battery, 5 or 6 ampere hours, is recommended. Or if we're working overhead, we naturally want a compact and lightweight device. In that case, we can easily use a small 1.5 ampere hour battery. I'll discuss the battery runtime separately later in the test. Moving on to the front part of the machine, here at the top, you can see the built-in motor, in this case, a regular brush motor. And right in front, the heart of the battery nailer, namely the magazine with the individual nails. On the left side, under transparent plastic, we see several individual small springs, and overall, here is the magazine chamber. And at the very back, also in black, a small lever to open the magazine. I would suggest let's go ahead and insert a few pins down here. As I mentioned, here's the magazine chamber, and I've taken out a row of nails. They look like this. As you can see, several individual nails are joined together in such a row, and the box contains a total of 10,000 pieces. So with this, you should definitely be able to nail quite a bit. Also very important, when we look at the nails, we see a black marking on one side with several arrows, and precisely, the nails must be inserted into the nailer in this orientation. As you can see, all the arrows in this case point downwards, which means the nails must be inserted in this direction down here. On the pen nailer itself, on the other hand, we now see here at the bottom of the magazine or the magazine chamber, and at the very bottom, there's this small metal rail behind which the pins must be inserted. I'll now take a set of nails and insert them behind the metal rail. The nails slide in smoothly, and I push them all the way to the stop. Depending on how much space is left here, I can just as easily insert a second set. But I would say one set is sufficient, and we close the magazine. Slide the cover back on until here, and now a bit of pressure is needed. As you can see, the spring tightens and the cover closes on its own. Due to the fact that we have transparent plastic but still cannot see how many nails are left, we have a small fill level indicator or indicator in red down here, showing us how many nails are still in the magazine. We've inserted approximately this many nails, and precisely here is this indicator. If we distribute more nails, it slides further forward until it reaches the front, and there are no more nails in the magazine. Even if you look closely, you can also see under this transparent plastic the remaining nails. Speaking of nails, what do we have or need for this battery pen nailer? Currently, nails with a diameter of 0.6 millimeters and a length of 30 millimeters are inserted. However, you can easily vary the length. The pen nailer effortlessly handles nails from 15 to 35 millimeters, each 0.6 millimeters thick. On the front side, the 0.6 millimeter thick nails are then shot out. On the top, there are several small screws so that we can dismantle the entire part, and precisely here is where the nails come out. However, you have to imagine this as follows. I can't just press it and the nails shoot out from the front accordingly. Instead, I have a small contact surface here. A safety mechanism, meaning I have to press the pen nailer with some pressure against a surface. Only then is it possible to fire the nails. It has a sharp metal tip at the front, and I need to press it onto the surface. The question arises whether I might scratch or damage the surface with it. But there is, of course, a solution for that as well, on the other side of the battery pen nailer, precisely here in red. What we have here is a so-called protective tip or a small rubber cap that we can place at the very front of the pen nailer to protect the surface and prevent scratching. Moving on to the other side, because there are definitely a few more interesting things to see, such as this small adjusting wheel at the front of the pen nailer. This small metal wheel is there to allow us to adjust how deep the nail should be sunk into the wood. Simply turn the wheel to the left or right to easily adjust the depth. We can adjust the depth up to 1.5 millimeters in total. So far, everything sounds very good, but what if a nail gets jammed at the front? There is, of course, a solution for that as well. For that, on the other side of the magazine, also in black, we find this small hex key, allowing us to resolve the nail jam. Afterwards, with the included hex key, remove these 3 screws, then take off the black metal cover, pull out the nail causing the blockage, put everything back together, and continue. And now we've thoroughly examined the DPT353 in theory. Now let's switch to the test and see how well it can actually nail. So sit back, let's start the test. And now it's time to take a close look at the compact brad nailer DPT353 from Makita in practice. For power, I used a large 5 ampere-hour battery that I'd fully charged beforehand. I think, regarding performance, there should be no difference if you use lower capacity batteries, since the device may not be as power hungry. As for the pens, I used the headless nails from Makita with a length of 30 millimeters. When inserting the pens, it's important to ensure that the arrow marking points downward, since the nails exit the device from this side. The insertion itself is admittedly very simple and can be done within a few seconds. After that, it's only necessary to adjust the depth of the sink using the small wheel on the side. It's recommended to perform a few test runs in the same material to determine the perfect sink depth. Now the battery nailer is ready for use, and we can finally dive into the test. For materials, I selected several small remnants of rough chipboard in advance to thoroughly test the battery nailer. You can imagine using it for baseboards, decorative moldings, textiles, and any other tasks where a light fixation is necessary. The operation of the device is entirely self-explanatory, as described earlier. To activate the nailer, the nose must be pressed onto the material. For very sensitive materials, it's advisable to use the small red rubber cap at the end of the machine. After all, the nose of the nail is quite sharp, and it could damage the surface. The small rubber cap is simply attached to the front of the nose and has no impact on the device. Afterward, it is unlocked and can be activated by the trigger. With each press of the trigger, exactly 1 nail is shot into the material. There's no lock for continuous firing. After all, you want to align the nails as precisely as possible, and that sometimes takes a bit longer. Using several individual nails, I tried to fasten 2 rough chipboards together, which was not a real challenge. In just 10 seconds, I had shot 5 nails into the material, securely connecting both boards. Afterwards, as shown in the video, I attempted to connect both boards in various positions and directly mount them on the wooden beam to test stability. I must say, I was quite surprised at how well the small nails held the material together. Clearly, you shouldn't expect the stability of a conventional nail, but I have to say, without strong force, both boards would not come apart. Additionally, the longer nails, the more stability is achieved, with the DPT353 supporting nails up to a maximum of 35 millimeters. If you wish to use even longer nails, you might want to take a look at the 2 larger battery nailers from Makita mentioned in the description below. As you can see, this test did not pose a real challenge for the device, which is why I re-evaluated the nailer on hardwood. Due to the different hardness of the material, the sink depth had to be readjusted. After a few attempts, the initial pins were not fully sunk, prompting me to set the device to its maximum level. Even in this case, the nails were fully sunk into the hardwood. In terms of handling, there's nothing negative to note. The machine is lightweight and compact, especially compared to other pneumatic devices. As the test showed, the device is relatively energy efficient. So if you don't need to sink thousands of nails in a row, you can easily manage with a small 1.5 ampere-hour battery. All in all, I must say that I am quite satisfied with the Makita battery pin tacker DPT353, both in terms of performance and handling. For those in search of a powerful and compact battery nailer that doesn't require nails longer than 35 millimeters, this device should undoubtedly bring satisfaction. On the other hand, those who need more power may want to look at the Makita DBN600. And with that, I would say we've covered everything in this video. If you enjoyed it, please show your support with a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and activating the notification bell to stay updated on future videos. You can find the current prices of this battery nailer to support this channel in the video description below. Thank you very much for supporting this channel. And with that, I bid you farewell. Until next time, take care and see you then. Goodbye.